Episode 568, Tips for Technical Writing with Drones, Robots, and More in English Lit Class.
The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
Today, we're talking with Jeremy Rinkel. And Jeremy, you teach writing and you're in a somewhat traditional literature English classroom, but you take a different spin on writing. What is your spin and why?
I have been going to technology conferences for a long time and just hearing how many jobs are in the technology sector in our country and even globally, I'm starting to shift my focus on, instead of academic writing and literary analysis, looking at the technical writing aspect of things.
Now, so give us some examples of what you're doing.
Okay. Typically, with technical writing, you have your reports and your memos and creative writing for advertising. But what I've really taken to focus on these last couple of weeks in my classroom is focusing on writing kind of how-to manuals. And one of the things we've been experimenting with is drones in the classroom.
Okay, so first, before we talk about what you're doing, are you getting pushback from other, more traditional teachers of literature and writing? Are they kind of looking at you funny?
Yeah, definitely. Whenever I try to think new age ways of reaching kids, and unfortunately, and Shakespeare has its place, believe me, Shakespeare has its place, but with the kids of today, holding their attention and getting them to read a deeper reading of Shakespeare is a lot more difficult than getting them to watch a YouTube video on how to do something, or even look at a technical manual and things like that. There is a place for that. But so I have, to make a long story short, have gotten some pushback, but I'm fortunate in the district I teach in. I teach in a really rural district and have a lot of autonomy on what I can do with my curriculum and classroom. So yes, some negative feedback type things, but for the most part, very supportive as well.
So let's talk about the most important feedback. What kind of writing are you seeing from your students, and do you feel like they're improving?
Absolutely. Again, getting them engaged in a subject where they can see that, hey, I can go to a university or I can go to a community college that has unmanned aerial drones programs. College of Missouri, I know that has a 4-year program for drones to use in agriculture, and the military uses drones. So getting them engaged in thinking, oh, I could really have a career in this. Just teaching them the step-by-steps, and with technical manuals, you're more specific and you're more precise with your word choice. And that's really what we've been working on this last couple of weeks, is being more precise with our word choice so that we don't have kids write 8 words instead of 15 or 20 words, and it means the same thing.
So give me an example of what this drone assignment looks like.
Okay, basically what I had the kids do is I gave them a multitude of different topics. I had some students working on a glossary. Some students were working on, I gave them the drone boxed up and I said, okay, tell me step by step on how to get this drone ready for flight. It meant assembling some pieces and that kind of thing. So some kids had to write about that. Some kids wrote about the uses of drones, the challenges and the legal aspects of drones, the ethics of drones. And then I had some students, there's 4 students in my class that focused on using Python, which is the programming language, and using JavaScript as well to write code. And my challenge to them is to get my drone to fly from my classroom to our secretary's office down the hall.
So you're actually flying drones in your classroom?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And trying to get them to where they just don't, have the controller in their hand. I want them to be able to learn the programming code. And we're using, it's called Swift Playground, I think is what it's called, Online Swift Playground. And we're using that to actually code the Parrot Mambo drone. That's the drone that we're using in the classroom right now. Now,
we have to mention that when you have drones in the classroom, there's some safety precautions. What are yours?
First and foremost, if they're manually flying it without it being programmed, they can't buzz people's heads and stuff like that. They lose privileges if I can tell that they sped up and hit the wall hard, that kind of things. I don't necessarily have them wear safety glasses, although it may not be a bad idea to incorporate something like that. But most of the students, that they know the expectation, they know the do's and the don'ts. So most of them do abide by that. But there could be challenges, definitely.
Have you made any mistakes as you've taken this approach?
I think with students, I could have prepped them a little bit better on each of the tasks and what my expectations for each little section of this manual that we're putting together would have. So we're going to be doing some revision tomorrow and on Thursday of what they wrote in their first initial draft. And then we're going to make it live onto a web page soon. So, but again, if I would have had clear expectations that I passed on to my students, that would be something that I could see the lesson being a little bit more successful next time around.
Of course, we want to point out that you have revisions, and I can't stress how important it is to revise copy or revise anything that we write, because, that's when students really have the learning experience, isn't it?
Right. And that's the commonmost thing that kids don't want to revise. They think that the first time it comes out of their head that it's perfect. And that's a mentality that I've been teaching for 12 years, that the first time you write something should not be the last time you write something. So trying to teach that perspective and that mentality of writing, that I write all the time and I revise constantly. So it's a thing that needs to be learned and pushed towards kids.
I'm curious, are students turning this in the more traditional way with paper, or are they doing it electronically? And if so, how?
We're a one-to-one Chromebook school. The kids don't take them home, but we have a Chromebook for each of our high school students. And so we're highly a Google school. We have the Google Suite, Google Classroom. So a lot of their first draft writing goes into Google Docs. They share, they edit each other's work, which again, peer review is something that's been an ongoing challenge as well. And then they submit that into an assignment that I create on Google. And then I take all their collaborative work and I put that into Google Sites. And then the kids, that's where we're at for tomorrow. We're going to be going through the Google site and critiquing each other's stuff and seeing what's missing, what we need to add, and that kind of thing.
So you're doing this nonfiction writing and technical writing. Will you still make room for literary criticism in your curriculum?
Yeah. Right now with my juniors, we are reading a more, I read modern English or more modern books like Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom is what my juniors are reading now. So we're looking at that, looking at the topic of death. I just finished Fahrenheit 451 with my sophomores. So there is a lot of literary analysis. So this is just a unit that I'm trying for the first time. Can hope to continue and build upon the unit. 3D printers are coming up. I've got a 3D printer I got that we're going to start doing some stuff with it. So, and again, from a technical writing standpoint, how do you use a CAD program? How do you use properly design things? So lots of fun stuff coming.
So I love it because you're using it and you're writing about it and, helping students understand, all of these subjects, STEM or STEAM or however you want to look at it, they're all interrelated. They are all interrelated. And when we separate them, we're kind of missing the point, aren't we?
Right. The more and more the longer and longer I'm in the classroom, I see a disconnect among different subject areas are not talking together, I guess, to where, we can do science and English, we can do history, we can do English and history, we can pull all these different curricular areas together and give the students a more realistic or real life approach to learning and career. And by segmenting and doing all this individual, they're not seeing that connection to the real world with all these things separate.
And this definitely connects writing to the real world. So Jeremy Rinkel will share the information. Perhaps by the time this show comes up, we may have a website that you might be sharing. And this is fascinating because it's a literature/English/writing classroom that's using technology and has a technical writing unit. So Jeremy, thank you for sharing about it. And thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.